What is good, everybody, man? Let me get this audio fixed. Let me make sure. Let me know if y'all can hear me, man. I told y'all during the season, the live streams are coming way more frequent than in the off season. If you haven't missed it, if you've missed anything, man, make sure to go watch some content. We dropped previews for our FBS game of the week, Ohio State Notre Dame. Already dropped previews for the Aggie-Eagle Classic and the Orange Blossom Classic. Our FCS games of the week. If you comment the correct score, predict the correct winner in any of those three comment sections for those previews of the game, win our $50 Venmo giveaway. Also, if you haven't seen on our website, we already dropped our Thursday night predictions for some of the top FCS games. We'll go through those in just a second. And Jackson State landing a former USC three-star offensive guard. He was out of St. John Bosco. This dude might be one of the biggest guys I've ever seen play guard. He has tackle size, but the athleticism to play guard. I didn't have really time to make a episode, so go check out any of the other YouTubers or analysts who had time to make videos for him. But I dropped an article. It's on our community page. I made a post about it, man. You can go read about him on our website and what his addition could possibly mean for Jackson State. And I know a lot of people were asking, he is not eligible this year. He entered the transfer portal after the May 1st deadline. So unless he applies to the NCAA and gets a special situation waiver, which I don't think he has any reason to do that, he will not be eligible up until the 2023 season, which is fine. Jackson State really has probably their top 5 offensive linemen set already, and it would be really hard to come in on September 1st and earn a starting spot on one of the favorites for the SWAC. So it would be really hard to do that, but great pickup by Jackson State. We have an article on him on our website, but just to kind of give y'all an update on some of the action going on tonight, though, it's a big night for FCS football. The game of the night probably is number 5 Missouri State traveling to Central Arkansas. That game just kicked off on ESPN Plus. If you haven't checked out our article on our predictions, man, make sure to go do that after this show. But I picked Missouri State to win that game at a 35-24 score prediction as Missouri State looks to make it 2 in a row against Central Arkansas on the road tonight. They're a top 5 preseason ranked team. I think when you look at Jason Shelley, Ty Scott on the offensive side of the ball for Missouri State, I think it's going to be too much to overcome for Central Arkansas, especially when you look at Tyler Hudson, Lawan Whittingham, both moving on from Central Arkansas, and also they're breaking in a new quarterback now. Let me not lie here. Will McIlvain is a stud at quarterback, man. A Northern Iowa transfer. He was a 2019 freshman All-American. I'm excited to see what Central Arkansas has, but I think Missouri State has too much firepower. Of course, the game I've already seen in the comments, Campbell makes their debut tonight. I know a lot of Jackson State fans and SWAC fans are really interested to see what Campbell has due to that game with Jackson State coming up on the schedule. They're playing the Citadel right now. I got it on my phone right here with 1:16 left in the second quarter. Campbell leads 14-3, and man, that offense looks really good for Campbell. The offensive line has added a lot of size, man. That's the biggest offensive line I've seen at Campbell since I really started covering FCS. And listen, a healthy Malik Williams is a problem, man. The first touchdown, he made like 4 or 5 defenders threw it up, and his wide receiver just went and made a play. The defense has done a really nice job of stopping the triple option. And right now, Campbell's run game is the biggest thing, man. Campbell right now against the Citadel, as I'm looking, is averaging over 7 yards per carry right now against what's supposed to be a pretty solid front 7 for the Citadel. I picked them in my pick 'em to win 23-16 on our website. Kennesaw State and Sanford's another big game. Kennesaw being the number 8 team in the country. I think Kennesaw runs away with this one. Sanford's bringing in a new quarterback, a whole new wide receiving core, and their defense was a major problem. They've allowed over 240 yards rushing last year as a team, and you have Xavier Shepard and probably the best running team in the FCS coming in. I think Kennesaw runs away with that one. I picked them 41-20. Then my last pick here for a Thursday night game, Mississippi Valley State playing Tarleton tonight, 7 o'clock kickoff, and that one kicks off in about an hour on ESPN Plus. This is an interesting one. I personally would love to see Valley come out there and play really well for Coach Dancy. But there's a lot of question marks, man. There's a lot of question marks surrounding this Valley team. I heard the JUCO transfer is probably going to get the first snaps, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see both Jelani Easton and Jamari Jones in that game, depending how things work out. And when you look at Tarleton State, yes, Stephen Duncan stepped away. They named four-star Bo Allen, a Kentucky transfer, the starter. This is the guy who was the Kentucky State High School Player of the Year in high school, was one of the Bama was recruiting him, Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, everyone wanted Bo Allen. He steps in. The biggest question for them is, how does this wide receiving core perform after losing a lot of their top guys? They go and get DeJuan Miller from UAPB. If you guys remember, he was a 2019 All SWAC selection at UAPB. He's probably going to be their top receiver, in my opinion. So this is a big test, man. Ronnie Thomas, Jalen Bell have to step up and replace Rodney Garner and Jeremiah Kane at the defensive tackle spot. The defensive line and the front seven for Valley has to play big tonight. Tarleton State's bringing in a new running back as well. He's one of the transfers they landed. Valley has to really perform tonight, man. I think if they go out there and get the doors blown off, God forbid, it could be a really long season for Valley. But they got to go on the road in a really hostile environment. Man, Tarleton just did a bunch of stadium renovations. I think that game's going to have better attendance than people think. I have Tarleton State winning a close one, 30-23 over Valley, man. But I'm really hoping Caleb Johnson and Valley can go out there and get a big signature out of conference win in week 1 on the road and against a really good WAC team. That would be a huge win for Valley, man. But to get to the games, man, that we all want to talk about, man, listen, you already know we got the slideshows this year, man. We're trying to take this thing to the next level, and we got the FCS week 1 preview. So this preview right here does not include any of the Thursday night games. So I know the South Carolina State UCF game was in a short weather delay. That one's kicking off about right now. You also have some other big games. UAB and Alabama A&M are also tonight. That one's not on here either. I'm really hoping those programs go out there and show out. I'll just leave it at that. But to start out, man, I really wanted to look at some of the top FBS versus FCS games. These are games that I think could be interesting and or will have high stakes for the FCS team playing in them. And the first one I wanted to really look at is South Dakota State versus Iowa. This game is one that South Dakota State's about a 15.5-point underdog. Iowa has already been knocked off by, an FCS team. South Dakota State, in my opinion, has a real shot to claim their first FCS championship this year. They have a great shot at doing that. They have a loaded team. The question mark is can that offensive line hold up against a really stout Iowa defensive line? But this is a chance for Isaiah Davis, the Yankee twins, Mark Gronkowski. This game to me is a one-score game. I think I've already put on Twitter, I think South Dakota State can pull this upset off, and it'd be one of the biggest FCS upsets of the year. And a lot of people are really, in my opinion, South Dakota State's really being slept on in this game. I think Iowa's getting a lot of credit. And when I look at FBS over FCS upset or FCS over FBS upsets, I look for a major deficiency in the FBS school. And Iowa's offense has been atrocious for the last few years, man. They have been terrible. They struggle putting up points, yards, putting up consistent drives. And that's something with the run-first attack of South Dakota State. If they can shorten this game up and their defense can make some big plays, man, I do not be surprised if South Dakota State wins a low-scoring battle against Iowa. And I think this is a game that I'm going to be watching very, very closely this Saturday to see if South Dakota State can really start their season off in a big way. And if they pull this one off, watch out for the Jackrabbits come this season. That confidence will be through the roof. They've returned a lot of the guys that were out last season or battled injuries. I'm extremely excited to see South Dakota State versus Iowa. Now, Arkansas State versus Grambling, man. This is one I don't know if I see the upset coming. I went and looked up some Arkansas State film, and I went and kind of watched and what to possibly expect this year for Arkansas State. I think Grambling might have a little bit better shot than I sold yesterday night on the round table. But still, man, this is an Arkansas State team. They were 2-10 last year. They were not a very good FBS team. But the problem is that horrible Arkansas State team still smacked Central Arkansas with Tyler Hudson and Lawan Winningham and in a pretty talented Central Arkansas team last year. So I think Arkansas State's going to be motivated to get back on the right foot, and it's just so tough for a first year head coach with a new quarterback and everything that's going on at Grambling to go in there and pull off the upset. I think it could be competitive, man. I think it could be more competitive than I was thinking last night. Is that one to me? As long as Grambling can keep it close, I think that's a positive sign for Grambling. Just keep it close and don't get the doors blown off by Arkansas State. If Grambling goes out there and loses by 3, 7, even 10, I think that's a positive start to the Hugh Jackson era. And I have to see Grambling's offense put it all together. And that's my question. They have the quarterback battle didn't go as a lot of people expected. Holloway gets moved to wide receiver, even though a lot of people, including myself, thought he was the answer there at quarterback. And on top of that, Maurice Washington seems legit. The freshman wide receiver Faison Wilson seems legit, but I still got too many questions in the secondary and at the quarterback spot, man. I just want to see it from Grambling before I put my money on them pulling off the upset. But for me, I think Arkansas State pulls out a close one here, but I do think Grambling can keep it competitive if everyone who came in is as advertised. They have to live up to the hype that they came in with. And so that's a big question mark game for me. Now, Kansas State, South Dakota is an interesting one. South Dakota came in there and almost pulled off the upset a few years back. I think it was my freshman year in grad school. They came in there and truly almost came out with the win against a really talented K-State team with Skylar Thompson. K-State under Chris Kleiman has made some gradual improvements, but in my opinion, South Dakota, if they can come out there and establish their defense and establish their offense, they have a chance to keep it competitive. It's just so tough to go into Bill Snyder Family Stadium and come out there with a win. But I think South Dakota is one of those teams you can look at where if they live up to their expectations coming into the season with some of the talent they have in the front seven, South Dakota could make that game interesting, man. And so that's one of the ones I'm looking at. And then 3 games that I think could be real big upsets. UConn versus Central Connecticut. Central Connecticut, listen, man, a lot of people don't don't really watch, I guess, Central Connecticut, but any team playing UConn, I give them a chance. UConn has been the worst. Them and UMass have probably been the 2 worst FBS teams of all time, man. Of all time. I mean, those teams are terrible. And so if Central Connecticut could come out there and jump on UConn early, who's coming off a big loss, they're already 0-1 in week 0. I think Central Connecticut potentially could pull off this upset, man. I just put no faith in UConn. You could put a scout team up against UConn, and I'm giving them a chance here. So Central Connecticut needs to go pull off the upset over UConn. I would be extremely excited to see that. Now, Louisiana Lafayette versus Southeastern Louisiana is a game that I think a lot of people are overlooking due to the loss of Cole Kelly and due to the loss of the wide receiver. I'm blanking on his name right now, number 4. In Louisiana Lafayette, they lose Billy Napier. They lose some of that staff. They lose some of their top players to the draft. I believe both of their top running backs. I believe Levi is gone. Southeastern Louisiana, if they can turn this game into a shootout, and that secondary who has with Philando Jordan, with Zy Alexander, if they can force a turnover or two, I can see Southeastern Louisiana running in there and making this game extremely close with the potential to win this game. And I think because of the success of Louisiana Lafayette recently, a lot of people are overlooking this one. But I give Billy Napier like 95% of the credit for what Louisiana Lafayette could or was at that point. So I'm giving Southeastern Louisiana a great chance of pulling off this upset if Cephas Johnson lives up to the hype. And I think this game could be extremely interesting to come watch this Saturday. Now, the final one is a game that I think is extremely likely to pull this one off, man. Delaware over Navy. Navy has really taken a turn for the worse, to say the least, over these past few years. And Delaware is probably bringing in one of the most talented teams that they've had in the past few years. Remember, this was a Final Four team in the spring, went through a coaching change, had some injuries last year. I think Delaware potentially has the talent to knock off Navy, especially if they start putting up points on the offensive side of the football. You know you're going to have to stop a really tough offensive scheme. We know what the triple option is. If Delaware can just play strong and keep in the game in this one, do not be surprised if Delaware comes out with the win over Navy this weekend, man. Let me get some of these comments before we move on to the FCS games. Alabama State will surprise some people. The Vols open and play pick. I'm interested in what TSU does. Listen, we're going to talk about Tennessee State very, very soon. I downloaded HBCU Go and there's not any game on today. Is there on any day? I'm not sure on the HBCU Go. South Dakota State can pull that one off. UCF has come out running the ball quite a bit. Jackrabbits with the upset. I for real think the Jackson win that game. Underrated wide receiving core. He's like, if I pick the upset, it's the Jackrabbits. If Grambling ain't got the stuff together, I doubt they Graham has a chance. So UCF's already up 7 on South Carolina State here. South Dakota has a solid defense. They'll be able to hang. Yeah, South Dakota played Kansas really, really tough, man. Really tough, man. Telger said, I got FAM 31-27. We're going to talk about that game here in a minute. Don't forget Akron. That's true. Akron's down right now, if I'm not mistaken, man. I know they were down when I came on live. ULL versus SELU could be a rivalry game. I could see that. UD is winning this one. Billy Napier is going to have a tough go at Florida this year. I agree. He said his energy is unmatched. Dude, listen, South Carolina State's best player might be their punter, man. No disrespect to Devontae Green, man. That punter can play, man. Now, we're going to skip that one. Those are our games of the week. So let's talk about some underrated matchups here before we get to my 3 games of the week. Now, some games that I really am excited for, man. Montana State versus McNeese is going to be a game that I think is going to be extremely interesting. I mean, this is a game that I don't know how close it will be because these two programs are in two very, very different places, with Montana State coming off of a national title appearance and McNeese under first-year head coach Gary Goff from Valdosta State, who has had a very successful career as a head coach thus far at Valdosta. Now, McNeese has won the only matchup they played in, I believe, the 02 playoffs or 03 playoffs, and I'm going to be excited to see Cam Ransom transfers in from Georgia Southern, and I'm going to be interested to see how he performs against a very good Montana State defense. And I'm going to be interested to see how Montana State replaces Amandre Williams and also Daniel Hardy. Are we going to see another edge rusher emerge for Montana State? And how in the world do you replace Troy Anderson in the middle of that defense that did so much for Montana State last year? I think Tommy Millott, this is a chance for him to go out and show out, especially with Isaiah Afonso potentially missing due to injury. And so I want to see who steps up at running back for Montana State with Afonso out with injury. Man, that's a first team FCS All-American almost consensus. And I'm going to be really interested to see how they try to work around Afonso's injury. And I want to see who steps up at the wide receiver spot, man. Lance McCutcheon is out too. And with McNeese, Mason Pierce comes back at the wide receiver spot. You land Jackson State wide receiving transfer a la Brown as well. What does the offense look like? We know Goff likes to put it through the air and likes to try to have an explosive, high-scoring offense. This is a great test for McNeese, and to get to travel up to Bozeman, we know what the crowd's going to be like. We know Montana State has one of the best fan bases in the FCS. I still am leaning Montana State. I'm going to drop my score prediction on our article dropping tomorrow morning on our website, but I'm going to say I'm going to be leaning Montana State here in a win. I just think right now, man, these programs are in vastly different areas of team development, but I'm going to see, can McNeese at least hang early? And that's the question for me. And that would be promising for Gary Goff's new squad down at McNeese. But Montana State clearly has the better team right now compared to, man, Montana State is just, this is their year to prove last year wasn't a fluke, man. They got to go out there and perform, man. Number 4 in the country. They got to go win. Now, the other Montana team has a big game, has a big out-of-conference game as well. And I'm going to be interested to see what they look like, man, against Northwestern State. This is a Southland team that shouldn't. Let's see, hang on. So for all the FCS teams, if I'm not mistaken, I think Jamie Williams from FCS Fan Nation did a 130 team ranking of all the FCS teams in the country. So I think you got to go check Jamie Williams. I don't know where he posted it, but FCS Fans Nation, Jamie Williams is the guy who ranked all of them. If you're looking for just the top 25, um, then you can just go to the FCS stats perform site for the FCS top 25. And yeah, the Alabama A&M game is on CBS Sports Network, man. CBS Sports Network. But I got Montana big in this one, just to give you guys a heads up, man. I think this is a great test to see where Northwestern State's defense is. They have some really talented defensive backs, Shamar Bartholomew, and some guys. This is their chance to put up some great tape for the next level. But I just think Montana has them outmanned right now. But this is a debut for Lucas Johnson at the for Lucas Johnson at the quarterback spot to really prove that he's the future of the quarterback spot for Montana. And Montana's biggest knock, and the reason that a lot of people think they haven't done well in the playoffs recently, is because of the quarterback position. And so I'm going to be interested to see, does Montana and Johnson take that next step as a team? And he's facing a really good secondary. I want to see what the quarterback spot looks like for Montana. The final one, briefly, Western Carolina and the Charleston Southern. This is a game that they're going to put up a lot of points. Both of these teams like to score. And the reason I put it on here, man, is if you like to see the scoreboard light up, watch Western Carolina, CSU. This is going to be a great game, man. And Western Carolina brought in the top recruiting class in the SoCon. CSU has a really solid defense. I want to see how those teams face off this weekend, man. But let's get to our games of the week here, man. I'm trying to keep this at an hour because there's a lot of football on. These are our 3 games of the week at the FCS level. You got Jackson State, number 15 in the country, facing FAMU in the Orange Blossom Classic. You got the Aggie-Eagle Classic, North Carolina A&T versus North Carolina Central. And you got a top 15 matchup in Southern Illinois versus Incarnate Word. And man, all 3 of these games have so many storylines you can talk about. And Southern Illinois is 9th in the country. Incarnate Word is 14th. But man, let's talk about the Aggie-Eagle Classic real quick. I've already dropped my full preview on it, but I talked a little bit about it on the round table. But this is a game that both teams are looking at as statement games to prove that they are real contenders in their respective divisions. A&T was picked to win the Big South. Central was picked to finish second in the MEAC. A lot of people, including myself, thinks they have the talent to compete with South Carolina State to win that conference. Regardless, I know a lot of people are unanimously picking South Carolina State. Central has a really, really good football team, man. A really good defense, and I think the offensive line is going to develop with Bullock really well. So for me, I have to lean A&T just because I think, one, their offensive line's a bit more complete. They're going to be able to run the football. We're going to see how they replace Jermaine Martin and both of those top running backs from last season, but they have so many backs in that system, man. They just have so many backs. And I talked about some sleeper guys on the episode about who could step up. Man, listen, Jacob Roberts and Jermaine McDaniel on the defensive side of the football are going to be guys you're going to want to watch. And that's what's going to make me lean A&T, is because I just think they have a more complete defense right now, especially in the front 7, man. Jacob Roberts, in my opinion, I personally think Jacob Roberts is the best linebacker in the Big South. And he has done a great job. He was a Celebration Bowl MVP. And on top of that, Jermaine McDaniel, 11 and a half sacks in only 16 games at A&T. He is a problem at the defensive end spot. And if he can get after Richard on the other side against Central, A&T could really and truly break this game open. And last year, when you look at this matchup, A&T ran away with it. And when that happened, it was because they were able to establish the run, work off the play action, and really get Fowler some downfield shots and some easy passing opportunities. And Central cannot allow that to happen. Central has to slow down the run game and allow themselves to play at their pace, because if things get out of hand early and A&T takes a big lead, I think that is the worst possible thing for Central, man. So I have A&T winning, man. Go check out our full preview. We posted it 2 days ago on the channel. Now, for Southern Illinois Incarnate Word, we'll save the big game for the Angs. I know that's what a lot of people tuned in to see. This is going to be an interesting one. You have Incarnate Word with the first year head coach and GJ Kinney. You have Lindsey Scott Jr. coming in to take over for Cameron Ward as well. Now, All American wide receiver Taylor Grimes comes back at the wide receiver spot. The offensive line brought in some new talent with a lot of size, and the defense, of course. We know what they bring back with Caleb Culp, Kalechi and Lebechi, and some of those defensive linemen like Cam Preston at the defensive tackle spot. The one question is how in the world do you replicate the offensive success you had with Cameron Ward and GJ Kinney? Man, that thing is so hard. I keep wanting to say JG, but it's GJ. I want to see if this offense takes a big step back, because to beat a Southern Illinois team that's a top 10 team in the country, a contender in the Missouri Valley, you're going to have to put up points. And they have Southern Illinois coming to their house. They better pack out that stadium, and they better make it a difficult environment to win in, or this game could get out of hand. And when you look at Southern Illinois, Nick Baker is back. He set the school record in passing yards last season, 3,200 passing yards, 27 touchdowns. They bring back Avante Cox at the wide receiver spot. Man, that dude has over 200 career catches, what was an all-conference player last year. And they bring back their leading rusher in Javon Williams Jr. He has 41 total touchdowns in his career, according to FCS Stats Perform. The offense is going to put up crazy points at Southern Illinois. The only question is, can they stop anybody? That's been their downfall. When they get up against the North Dakota State, South Dakota State, some of those top teams are getting to the playoffs. They're not able to make key stops at times when their offense starts to falter. So that's the big question mark: is can Southern Illinois just find enough defensive stops to pull away in this one? I think this is going to be a huge test for both these teams. But in my opinion, I'm going to lean Southern Illinois right now. I'll give my official score prediction in our article dropping in the morning. But the pick here is most likely Southern Illinois, just because Incarnate Word loses so much from last season. If they still had Cameron Ward, it could be a different story. But Lindsey Scott Jr. has some huge shoes to fill. Even though he is a proven guy from Nicholls State, he still doesn't bring everything that Cameron Ward brought to this offense. Now, for the big game of the week, man, Jackson State, Florida A&M. I heard there potentially could be a good chance that Isaiah Land is back for this game. I'm not going to quote anything though. I'm hoping he is. I'm hoping he is back. Just in my, like, I would love nothing more than to see him come back for this game. But even if he does or doesn't, man, I still think right now there are just so many question marks with FAMU. I just, looking at this game, I've talked about it over and over again. Jackson State, in my opinion, the one thing they have to do is they just got to come up with a handful of stops and not let Jeremy Musa just be able to walk this offense down the field. And they're going to have to play strong against the run. If you allow Terrell Jennings to have cutback lanes, to really to average 5-6 yards per carry, start chewing up clock, keeping your explosive offense on the sideline, that is a recipe for disaster against this FAMU team, because you're going to want to have that defense who potentially might not be at full strength. You want them to be on the field as much as possible. You want them to be out there as long as they can, because you know they don't have the depth to hang if people start getting tired. And that's the key, man. You cannot let FAMU get the rushing game going. And that's why I'm looking at the defensive tackle spot. Devontae Davis, I heard, has been an absolute problem throughout fall camp for Jackson State. And on top of that, I want to see Katron Evans take that next step in his game. He was a young player last year, got to see some time sparingly due to the depth of that defensive line. He's got to step up and be the guy at the defensive tackle spot that Jackson State needs to replace an Antoine Owens. Now, at the defensive end spot, I've talked about it, Niles Gaddy, Antonio Doyle, any of the young guys that potentially were in that room last year. Who is going to be the guy to replace James Houston? And I'm not talking about just pure statistics, and I need him to get a million snaps. but I mean, a million sacks. I just need him to make some sort of an impact and take that next step. And so the person I'll look toward is Niles Gaddy, just because he's been in the system for a year. Like I spoke about on the roundtable and in our preview episode, due to him being in the system for a year, having that experience over some of the transfer guys who have only been there for a handful of months, this is Niles Gaddy's time to shine, especially with the offensive line. We don't know who's going to play, and even if they're fully healthy, let's say they get everyone back from eligibility. If listen, if you lose two starters to potential season-ending injuries, your depth is already effective regardless if you get everyone back. So this is Niles Gaddy, Antonio Doyle's, and this defensive line chance for Jackson State to really go out there and make plays and shine. And that's what I'm looking for Jackson State, is that defensive line to control the game and make a big impact. Now, for FAMU, have to run the football, like I said, and Jeremy Musa has to avoid the turnover bug. When you look at this Jackson State team, if the momentum starts swinging in their favor and things start getting out of hand, and you throw a pick and then there's a fumble, things could get out of hand really fast. And so the drop pick six potentially by Storm Duck last week, the interception he did throw, that cannot happen this weekend. And the defense and the cover schemes for Jackson State are going to be much more aggressive than what Gene Chizik and UNC threw at Musa last week. He is going to have to keep the ball out of Jackson State's hands. The last thing you want is to give your defense a short field. You cut their rest short, get them on the field again just after they got a big stop potentially or something like that. You cannot have them on the field all game long, man. So if you're FAMU, listen, Musa has to play well, man. These comments are throwing me off here. He said Corey Fields is off. What's the score of the game? He says South Carolina State doesn't look like they took a step forward. Bryant 9, FIU 0 in the first. I'm going to be interested to see what that South Carolina State game looks like, man. I got some of these games recorded, but for FAMU too, on the defensive side, the secondary has to come up with some sort of takeaways, and you got to find a way to get pressure on Shedeur. If you allow Shedeur to sit in the pocket and pick you apart, there's no chance. There's no chance with Daniels. There's no chance with Rucker. There's no chance with Shane Hooks, Kevin Coleman. If you give Shedeur a million years to sit in the pocket, he is just going to slowly pick you apart, and there is no chance, man, at all that you're going to come out and win this game. So that's a big thing for FAMU, is we don't know if Bowler's going to be able to play. Kendall Bowler and the rest of those guys in the secondary have to grow up fast. Take what you learned last week and build upon that, because you cannot give up explosive plays against Jackson State. That's the quickest way to get beat, man. Make Jackson State go 10, 12 plays down the field and go put up a score. You cannot allow them to have 1-2 play drives and have a big explosive play. You are going to have to play better than that, man. It's already 14-0 UCF. Fields just threw a pick. Oh man. But listen, man, that's how I feel, man. I picked Jackson State to win, pick Southern Illinois, and I picked North Carolina A&T to win our 3 games of the week. I did, like I said, man, Jackson State right now I think is the better overall team right now, with all the question marks surrounding FAMU. I just could not pick them right now, man. I just could not do that now. I've heard Malachi Wadman might not be able to play this weekend, but with the depth there, I think Rucker is probably the guy you look into. You're looking to step into his place. Probably Rucker, Shane Hooks. I think Dallas Daniels is one of the guys there. And so for me, I got Jackson State winning that one. Southern Illinois pulls out a big one over Incarnate Word, and A&T also pulls out a big win there, man. So, and then the other big games, man, that I want to talk about here is before I get out of here, is the Alcorn State game and also the Tennessee State game. So Alcorn State plays Stephen F. Austin. I'll be at that game. That's one of the games I really wanted to go see in person. I'll be leaving for Lorman early Saturday morning. Got some stuff set up with Mr. Kincaid, man. Shout out to you for reaching out to me. But this Alcorn game, I'm dropping a full preview tomorrow. I want to see, can Nico Duffy, can all these running back transfers go in there and put on a show? We saw Jacksonville State and that offensive line go in there and impose their will on Stephen F. Austin. They made him look out of shape. They made him look tired early, and they averaged almost 6 yards per carry as a team. I'm going to if Alcorn State's going to win this game, Nico Duffy and these running backs have to put up 125 to 175 yards in that range. They are going to have to be dominant, and they're going to have to establish their pace and impose their physical will on Stephen F. Austin in that game. Now, for Stephen F. Austin, you just got to have some sort of offensive consistency. The defense gave them 2 early turnovers, and on top of that, they weren't able to turn those into points. Trey Self looked probably had one of his worst performances of his career last week against Jacksonville State. They couldn't establish the run game very well, and then they got down by so much that they had to get away from the run game, and they couldn't do anything, man. And so the offense has to play more consistent. The offensive line has to impose their will on Alcorn State's defensive line, and Xavier Gibson has to be special. You're a special talent. You're the all-time leading receiver now in the history of Stephen F. Austin football. This is your chance to go and shine. He did it against Valley last year. This is Xavier Gibson's chance to really put on a show against a really talented secondary led by of course KJ Kinsler in the back end for Alcorn. I'm dropping my prediction for that tomorrow on the official preview, man, but you have to run the football if you're Alcorn State, man. But y'all comment below what y'all think about that game, because that one is one you definitely have to watch. And then Tennessee State versus Eastern Washington is another game I didn't put up here, but is one that I'm going to be very interested to see. It'll be in our feature on our website in the morning. Tennessee State going up to Eastern Washington, playing a top 15 team. And man, this game is probably one of the games I'm most excited to watch this weekend, just because of all the unknowns for Tennessee State. And I just want to see Draylon Ellis, Devon Starling, Holloman at the wide receiver spot, and Zaire Thornton. Can that core of 4 elite guys put up points with one of the best offenses potentially in FCS football in Eastern Washington? Because we know, even though Eric Berrier's left, they're still going to try to put up a lot of points, and they're going to run the same system. Gunner has been in that system for a long time. He's been sitting behind Eric Berrier waiting for his shot. And if they go out, you're going to have to score minimum 30 points to beat Eastern Washington. Just in my opinion, especially at home in a non-playoff game, you're going to have to score 30 points. And so what does Draylon Ellis look like? Because this Eastern Washington team losing a ton of talent, they lost a lot of talent on the offensive side. The defense returns 2 all-conference defensive linemen. They return the full secondary. They land a 4-star transfer from Washington State. I'm excited to see what this Tennessee State offense can do against what's supposed to be a really good defense for Eastern Washington. And on the other side of the football, you have 3 all-conference guys on the defensive line. You have a really talented secondary. Now you have James Green coming back at linebacker, a 4-star guy, Kevon Pope, next to him. I want to see you hang in with this offense of Eastern Washington, even on the road. There is no excuse for Tennessee State to go up there and get blown out. I think if there's any way they can keep this game within 20 or so, it'd be a win, man. Just keep it competitive late in the game. And if you can pull the upset on the red turf where Eastern Washington does not lose much, that could be a big win for Eastern Washington, man. I'm excited to see it. I mean, for Tennessee State, and you can't go up there and get blown out because you have Jackson State coming in next week. And if you go up there and you get blown out, and Jackson State goes up there and goes down there and beat FAMU to death, like some people think, man, it could be a long, long week leading up to that game. I'm just going to tell you, just an update. Campbell just took a 20-3 lead over the Citadel in the third quarter, man. Can TSU take this weekend 17-14? Appreciate the donation too, Vic. Man, if Tennessee State holds Eastern Washington to 14 points, Vic, man, you are talking about a realistic OVC title contender. That would be impressive to go up on the red turf and hold Eastern Washington to 14 points, I mean, that would be elite, Vic. So I think it'll be way higher scoring than that. I can't see either of these teams scoring under 20, but man, that would be an insane performance, man. I got EW. Honestly, I believe TSU is a year or two away. I can see that. Let's see. He said Plumlee running like Tim Tebow out there. 21-0 UCF. Man, is hang on. So is South Carolina State looking that bad? That is tough. Hey man, I appreciate it, man. I'm no autograph, but definitely get with me when I get into Lorman. I picked Ohio State, Vic, man. I think Ohio State Ohio State is definitely the better team. I'm not a believer in the quarterback over there at Notre Dame. They got to get a better quarterback over there if they really want to compete. So I'm riding with Ohio State on that one. And so Malachi, I'm not sure. I heard it potentially was eligibility, but we'll see. I heard it was grades, but we will see. But I heard he did not leave with the team today, so I don't know if he's just going late, Kevin, or what. But that's just what I was told is he did not go with the team today. But we will see. Without the one forfeit, the UFC's QB just ran through 4 tackles. South Carolina State looks scared. Oh man. South Carolina State, man, I wanted a better performance. I even talked them up yesterday on the round table. I wanted South Carolina State to really go out there and play, man. So listen, I'll keep this live stream going for maybe 15 minutes, man. Listen, like the stream, subscribe to the channel, man. Listen, if you want to become a member, I got 2 tiers. One tiers, man, is just to support the channel. You get call-in priority, all that. It's cheap, man. I think it's like $2.99, man, just to support the channel. The other one is a little bit higher. We're gonna have some merch for that tier, and also we're looking at doing a Celebration Bowl ticket giveaway for the second tier of the membership, man. That will go down sometime in November, man. But we're gonna be looking to do that for the second tier. So appreciate y'all for that. But listen, the call-in numbers right there, 701-779-9585. We can talk any game on the FCS slate, any game going on tonight, man. We'll keep this thing going for 15 minutes, and then, man, I got to go catch some football. There's some big games on the slate. I want to go see what Alabama A&M looks like. I want to be as sad as y'all watching. Apparently, South Carolina State is playing really bad right now. That is tough. South Carolina State looks scared. Fields is crossing them with some bad passes. It's bad. DB's giving cushions, and no one can wrap up. Oh, Freeman can coach him up, but don't sleep on my Bucks. He said, yeah, that last touchdown UCF had, missed tackles by South Carolina State. UT Martin 7-0 over Western Illinois. But yeah, Lawrence, I'm going to ride with UT Martin on that one. Western Illinois landed some good transfers, but I still think that team needs way, way too much, especially after losing Daniels, who was really one of their top wide receivers, to Jackson State. Campbell versus JSU will be a good one. Listen, with how Campbell's looking, Campbell's offensive line looks legit. I talked a little bit about it earlier. Campbell's O-line looks absolutely legit. I'm excited to see this game. And Haj Malik looks like he's finally fully healthy, and his ability to avoid pressure, get out the pocket while keeping his eyes downfield. I'm going to be that game. If Campbell continues to perform like this, I want to see them against a team other than the Citadel. Because listen, the Citadel, we didn't learn anything about Campbell's defense. When you play a triple option team, you really don't learn a lot about your overall defense. You learn a lot about the linebackers and D line potentially. But for me, I think let them play someone else. Listen, North Carolina Central's on the schedule, A&T, Jackson State. Until I see Campbell against someone other than the Citadel, I'm a hold full judgment. But man, listen, the offensive performance has been amazing in terms of their ability to run the football in that offensive line. Maybe they'll come out the second half. Y'all barely escaped the Holy Prime first year in the spring, but y'all, yes, like the stream and subscribe. She said, I'm not even going to drag this performance like they dragged the Celebration Bowl, though. Oh, man. Man, I got to watch some highlights, man. And he looks legit, too. You were not lying. I'm going to be interested to see. I mean, how often do you think A&T rotates running backs? I think we could see a 55-45 split between the carries of the top 2 backs, and we'll see if they mix in a third guy. But I still think right now, man, Tootin gets a lot of the carries, but I wouldn't be surprised, man, if Dixon gets in there and makes some plays. But I did get a chance to check out a little bit of the highlights, but we're gonna find out a lot, man. A&T new quarterback coming in, potentially is what I've heard starting this game. A&T's got a lot of question marks, and with how good Campbell's looked tonight against the Citadel, A&T better come out there and play, because if they take an L to Central and potentially a big L, that preseason prediction is not looking great, and that Campbell game against A&T becomes ever more important, especially if Charleston Southern looks good against Western Carolina too. There's some teams that I think A&T fans are sleeping on in the Big South. I think Bryant's one of them. Bryant's a team that I think could be really good. They bring in Zevi back at quarterback. They bring in a really strong linebacking core. The D line is adding some size. They really and truly could make some waves in the Big South, and we'll see. Kind of what Gardner Webb and those other teams look like. But man, Campbell is going to give A&T a run for their money, and I cannot wait for that matchup, really and truly. Let's see. I think NCCU gets the upset. If Central pulls off the upset, you are talking about the MEAC looking really, really interesting this upcoming season. We may have our first FCS victory of the season. Yeah, that Akron game is looking real good for St. I believe it's St. Francis playing them tonight. SFU, that would be a huge one. I'm hoping that every FCS team that plays the FBS team outside of Mercer this weekend, I'm sorry, it's still War Eagle for me as an alum, but outside of Mercer this weekend, I'm rooting for every FCS team to pull off the upset over an FBS school. I would love to see it. I see Charlie Dixon being secondary as a freshman, but if we establish the run game, he can get out there and cause chaos or havoc. If everything goes right for A&T, you're running the football. Let's just say you're averaging 5 to 7 yards a play. I mean, hey, if he can get 5 to 10 carries a game as a freshman, that would be great for him. I think that's about what Tootin was getting when he was younger last year. So, in my opinion, I think if Dixon could get anywhere, I think you probably bump it up to 6 to 10 carries per game. That'd be great for a freshman in that A&T offense. South Carolina State is getting their ass whooped. They need to avoid all SWAC matchups this year. A&T comes back to reality this year. What does progress look like for Shador? So what, he threw for 3,200 yards and 30 touchdowns last year. I think progress for Shador, I would say 35 to 3,800 yards and 35 to 3,800 yards, and I would say 35 to 40 touchdowns would be progress for Shador. I don't want to say 4K to 4,500 yards. Some people are saying 5,000 yards. I don't think people understand what you realistically have to average to hit that in a season. When you look at the quarterbacks who did that, I mean, Cole Kelly and Eric Berrier, and then you had Cameron Ward get I believe pretty close to that. And I mean, they were throwing for like 400-500 a game, man. I mean, Eric Berrier had a 600-yard performance in 3 quarters against Idaho and threw for 7 touchdowns. It is, I think, when you get in that 45 to 5,000 yard mark, that's a lot of yards. So I think anywhere from 3,500 to 3,800 Vic would be just fine. And I think if you can hit 40 touchdowns, man, that would be solid for Shador, man. That would be a huge year, and I think that would put him right in the contention for potentially the Walter Payton Award. But man, all the people saying that, oh man, he's gonna go out there and easily throw for 5,000 yards. Like, I don't think people understand what that would take. And with some of the defenses that he's going to come up against this year, 5,000 yards is going to be really tough. And I mean, if he throws for 5,000 yards, you're talking about he has an excellent shot and probably is the favorite, depending on what Jason Shelley does at Missouri State, to win the Walter Payton Award. That is insane, man, to go that high. So I think 35 to 3,800 yards, 40 touchdowns, Vic, is what I would probably put Shador at right now. The Big South Conference is looking good. Yeah, if Mercer can get to Finley and force them to throw the ball and make them uncomfortable, it could be a long day. Man, Aaron, I'm really dreading that game. Just going to let you know, I think Mercer gives Auburn all they want and more this weekend. Let me see. Is USC transfer? No, Gibbs is not eligible. I talked about this a little bit earlier. He's not eligible. He did not enter the transfer portal until I think August, and you have to enter the transfer portal um by May 31st to be eligible to play that season. So um so Gibbs will not be eligible till the 2023 season unless he gets a waiver from the NCAA for some special circumstance, which, based on what I know, I don't think he's going to get. So uh, Gibbs will not be eligible until 2023, from what I was told. Definitely like the stream, man. Join the membership, man. Subscribe to the channel. 5K is Timmy Chang with Mike Leach numbers. Clemson beat South Carolina State last year. Then what happened? Todd, man, appreciate you tuning in. Let's see if he throws 4K plus, that means they lose. Ooh, you so serious? So you think if he throws 4K, then they lose? I don't know about that one, man. I don't personally. I don't know about that one. If Shador throws for 4,000 yards, I think I don't know if they lose 3+ games if he hits 4K. I mean, that's you got to really be balling out, man, to hit 4K. And he probably, I mean, you got to look. He had what a really he didn't have a good game against Southern for the most part. He had a horrible game against PV, and he had a horrible game against South Carolina State. Man, if he just hits his average about 250, you're looking at him already hitting 3,500 yards last year. Oh yeah, okay. Gotcha, garbage yards. That makes sense. So yeah, I mean, potentially, it just I don't want to make it's hard to make statistical predictions for him until we see what Jackson State's offense is going to be like, because I think he might get more attempts than he had last year. Personally, um, I want to see what the offense looks like, because until I see it, I don't know where to put it, because they got too many talented running backs and everything. I want to see the biggest question mark, and I talked about this on the roundtable, is how do you use Savion Wilkerson? He is too talented just to be sitting in the backfield as a decoy, and he's too talented just to use him as a protection, where he's just chipping defensive linemen, sitting in the pocket, making sure the offensive line holds up. You're going to have to get him the ball in some sort of situation. I mean, you're going to have to run the football with him, or you're going to have to get him involved in the pass game, and that's going to be something I'm looking really, really closely for this weekend, is how Jackson State uses the running back core that they have. And you also have Tyson Alexander coming back too. So I'm going to be interested to see what Jackson State's offense overall looks like. And I think that come back to me when we do this live stream on Sunday night. We're going to do it after the game, do the whole FCS recap like we did last week. I'll kind of give you another. I'll readdress this question once I see what they look like. He said Auburn's going to steamroll Mercer. JSU's down Weidman and Pope. They might have 14 other wide receivers. When Shador has a big season, we all have to start. Man, Aaron, I'm just gonna be honest with you, man. The days of Heisman ever going to an FCS guy are over. Like, listen, it's just not gonna happen. And I'm not trying to hate. I know there's gonna be some Jackson State fans saying I'm hating. It's never gonna happen. When you look at the statistical seasons that Cooper Kupp, that Devlin Hodges, that Cole Kelly, that Eric Barrier had, Shador's not touching those stats, and there's just no way he's ever going to get votes for the Heisman, man. That those days of the '90s are over. There's a reason why the Walter Payton Award has grown like it has to Buck Buchanan. Heisman votes are not coming to an FCS player, regardless of how hard everyone pushes. An FCS player will never win the Heisman, never be invited to New York, and things are different now than it was when Steve McNair was out there balling out. So Shador, the campaign for the Walter Paytons to start, but the Heisman campaign will be for nothing, really and truly. This is not going to happen with the way college football's set up now. Let's see. UCF is going to be a problem in the American. Believe it will come down between Houston, Cincy, but UCF can derail both. Hey, man, appreciate you, Joseph. Hey, appreciate you, man. Thank you for the donation. Yeah, you're not being realistic. Steve McNair was an anomaly. I agree. man, they're not giving it to a defensive player. Kevin, listen, nobody in the FCS is getting Heisman votes. It's not happening, man. The college football has changed. It don't matter if you're a 5-star, a 4-star, a 6-star, 7-star, whatever you want to put it. It's not happening. College football has changed way too much for that to happen. Savion will cut his throws. He will not. He will not need to throw as much. Um, yeah, listen, Savion's too talented, man. And Jacoby, I completely agree with you. He is too talented just to sit in the backfield. I think Savion, if it's not going to happen in the Jackson State offense, I don't think. But if he was in an offense that if he was in an offense that ran first, like a Southern or something like that, man, Savion's an easy 1,000-yard back. I think he has a talent looking at just his overall film from last year. I think I think Savion's too talented, man. Exactly. It's politics, man. It is politics. He's an anomaly. No, like his year was an anomaly and the vote was an anomaly, man. It's politics. The FBS does not want to give any credit to any FCS player. There's a reason that the top 3 quarterbacks in the entire country at the FCS level last year, none of them got drafted. None of them. And there's a reason none of them are. I mean, I think Cole Kelly may have made the roster. I got to double check. I think he made the Washington roster, but Eric Barrier playing in the XFL. Listen, FCS players are not going to get FBS Heisman votes, man. They are not going to give them that type of respect. There's a reason why everyone, kind of talks down on them in the NFL draft process, and why there's a big movement to get more players from the FCS drafted, because there's not of respect put on the FCS level anymore. So it's politics. I appreciate that comment, Jacoby. Sanford tied it up with KSU. Jesus Christ. McNair, Tariq, and Bruce Eugene didn't even get invited. You could be a 7-star QB from WKU. You ain't getting in. I agree, Vic. It's just it's not gonna happen, man. Shout out to Dave too down here. But man, before we wrap this up, definitely hit the like button, subscribe. Yeah, I must say McNair's the only FCS finalist that has happened, and it hasn't happened since. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think anyone's even gotten a single vote, just because everyone knows what it is. FCS players fight for the Walter Payton Award and fight for the Buck Buchanan. They don't fight for the what is it, Nagurski, the Benark, what is it? I forget all the names of Davey O'Brien, all that, man. FCS players are not ever going to get votes for that, man. It's sad because I think they should. Because I think if they're actually statistical awards, then there's been quarterbacks in the past 5-10 years that have deserved to get votes. But man, it's all politics, and they're going to give it to, when you look at the Heisman race this year, they're going to give it they're going to give it to the best player on the best team. So you're looking at CJ Stroud, you're looking at Bryce Young again, you're looking at whoever emerges for Georgia potentially, or one of those top teams, man. I think the ones that are anomalies recently have been the Robert Griffins, the Lamar Jacksons. It's such a political thing, even at the FBS level anyway, man. It's all politics at the FBS level. There's a reason why Mark Ingram won it, and Ndamukong Suh, and a running back. So Mark Ingram won the Heisman as a running back. Second place was another running back who had more yards and more touchdowns than him and averaged more yards per carry. And they gave the Heisman to Mark Ingram. Why? Because he played at Alabama. All politics. All politics. Has nothing to do with being a JSU fan. Both are the closest thing in HBCU that can get some Heisman interest. What's with this Wiseman talk? I was just told, I was texted by my guy at JSU that he didn't travel with the team. But we'll see. I mean, listen, it's just something I heard, and we'll see what happens, man. I don't even think it matters anyway. Listen, Jackson State at the wide receiver spot, Rucker, Shane Hooks, Dallas Daniels, potentially Travis Hunter, Kevin Coleman. I think they still have one kid from Indiana left. I mean, there's so much talent at the wide receiver spot that it doesn't even matter. JSU will open the season with 9 new starters on offense that wasn't on the team last year. Totally different and upgraded offense. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 247 Sports put in an article that Jackson State landed like double-digit Power 5 transfers this year. And when you look at the When you look at the offensive line, what you got 5 new starters, and how many new starters in the 2 deep? Like 8? Like there's like 8 new players on the offensive line in the 2 deep for Jackson State. I think Tony Gray, and then there's a guard that was there last year, but man, they brought in so much talent, and even the talent they brought in like Simi, that he ended up leaving. So I mean, there was so much offensive line talent. And I think when you look at that, the fact that Coach Prom is still bringing in offensive linemen with the 3-star from USC today, he understood that if this offensive line did not improve, Jackson State had no chance to repeat. And so I think I got to give credit, man, where credit's due. Jackson State said, listen, we did not have a good offensive line last year, and we brought a whole boatload of guys who we think could play together. I think Zach Bro, for what I've been told in fall camp, has proven himself, and we're going to see how this offensive line gels throughout the season. The biggest thing is just get better week after week. I don't expect JSU's offensive line to be perfect. So you're not going to hear me come on this show on Sunday, regardless of what happens, and say, oh, the offensive line is just atrocious, is never going to get better. To week 1, I'm expecting some mistakes. I want to see some bright spots on film, but then when they go up against Tennessee State the next week, I want to see some of those flaws fixed. And then I want to see them take another step forward in week 3 against Grambling, then another step forward week 4, whoever they play. I'm blanking on the whole schedule, but each week I just want the offensive line to get a little bit better. And that's the only thing I'm looking for JSU's offensive line. They have the talent. Now I need to see the chemistry, communication, and execution. And that's something that never really seemed to develop last year for Jackson State outside of the Alabama A&M game. And that's the biggest question mark for me. The only good award is a title. Not saying others aren't cool, but hoisting a championship should be the only goal. Yeah, so Jackson State's landed 10 Power 5 transfers just in this 2022 class as of today. Man, UCSI score again. Campbell is taking a 23-3 lead over the Citadel, by the way. I give JSU props because they also raised the level of competition between FCS schools, relieving us from watching boring FBS games like the Egg Bowl. That is something that I don't think a lot of people talk about. There's a lot of talk about how the SWAC raised their play because of Coach Prom coming in. Man, if you really follow, because the problem is, a lot of the other content creators and analysts in the SWAC space don't watch a lot of FCS football in general. There's a handful of them, but man, the entire FCS, man, the transfer portal has changed the game across the FCS. I think when you just look across all the different conferences, man, the transfer portal has been completely changed, man. When you look at Eastern Washington landing 4-star transfers, you look at Incarnate Word bringing in a bunch of transfers after GJ Kinney comes in. You look at Southeastern Louisiana bringing in guys, and there was a really great article by 247 Sports that was like almost 50% of FBS teams have starting quarterbacks from the transfer portal. When you look across the FCS, there are a lot of FCS teams that have the same thing. When you go and break down rosters, how many top players on FCS rosters right now are transfers? There's a lot of them, and I think the great thing for FCS programs, and this is something that I kind of have been working on trying to figure out an episode to put it in, but we'll talk about it here, man. Shout out to all 100 something of y'all tuned in tonight, man, on a Thursday night when y'all could have been watching football instead of me. The biggest thing for FCS programs is, one, now you have the ability to land top transfers out of the portal. And then on top of that, let's just be honest, FCS programs have been better historically at developing talent than some of these top FBS programs. It's easy to go recruit a bunch of 5-stars and be great on the field and just put it together and go win a national championship. But when you look at these FCS programs that historically have not gotten 4 and 5 stars, they've had to develop 3 stars, 2 stars, etc. This is a big development for the transfer portal, man, in terms of just overall talent development. And some of these transfers who transfer down and turn out to be great players, I contribute it sometimes to the coaching. You can be a 4 or 5-star, go to a FBS program and not work out. You come down to the FCS level, get some real coaching at times, and then you turn into be a great player, just like a James Houston. At Florida, he was an average SEC player. He comes to JSU, and he's a Buck Buchanan Award finalist. Justin Ford, Kamari Everett, the list goes on and on. Cole Kelly. All it takes sometimes is a change of scenery and some real coaching, and things can really, really change. Man, Campbell just got a pick. Yeah, so man, Campbell is running away with this one. Jesus Christ, Campbell looks good. I'm just gonna let y'all know, man. Campbell looks legit. Does anyone know who won the QB number 2 battle at JSU? Coach Prime highlighted the battle during one of the recent interviews. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know who won the QB2. I'll have to look that one up for you, man. But I'm sure Aaron Sanders is in here, man, and he'll know, man. That's my JSU guy right there. But I know it came down between 2 of those transfers, but I don't think it. I'm really hoping Shedeur gets through the season healthy, man. But I'm assuming it was probably that Ohio State transfer, if I had to guess, just off the top of my head. Special teams should be vastly improved. Let's see, had to be a depth chart. Had to be a depth chart season as to why some players didn't travel. What do you think the point spread will be for North Dakota State and Nebraska week 1? Well, I don't. Is that next season, Joseph? Or are you talking about the North Dakota State Arizona game in week 3? If they play next year, I'm not sure. That's kind of tough to predict ahead. But if I had to guess what the line would be this year for the Arizona North Dakota State game, okay, I know it can't. Arizona cannot be favored by double digits, and if you're being legit, North Dakota State should be the favorite over Arizona going into this game. Just in my opinion, North Dakota State should be the favorite. That's just where I'm going to leave it at that. Man, I got a text from Scotty that said it was bad. I'm not watching the South Carolina State game, but it 28-0. Jesus Christ, man. That's horrible, man. The Valley game just kicked off. I just switched it to that. Tarleton State has the ball first. 14 minutes, 53 seconds left in the first quarter. Bo Allen is going to be the starting quarterback for Tarleton State. I hear Shedeur has a shoulder injury. FAMU got a hit, push, follow him as often as possible. I think JSU will try to make Musa flush the pocket and throw on the run, which is a weakness. I don't know. Go check out the episode, but I did pull some of the advanced analytics out of last week's game, and Musa actually was really good under pressure last week. Completed about 75% of his passes, a touchdown, almost 100 yards. He had a really high PFF analytics grade under pressure. I want to see if he can replicate that. Jackson State is going to try to pressure him, but he responded well last week. I want to see if he can respond well again, man. That's the big thing for Musa for me this week. I'm glad Campbell looks good. Hope they win their conference. First game for JSU with SWAC refs, and I see a bunch of penalties. FAMU had a game going under their belt. South Carolina State game of the Celebration Bowl was a perfect storm. A&T has a tough schedule going forward. I hope they don't go 0-12. 0-4 to start the season. Jesus Christ. If A&T starts out 0-4, which is possible. So for people who don't know, A&T starts out with Central this weekend. They go to North Dakota State next weekend in Fargo. They go to Duke in week 3, and then they have week 4 they have South Carolina State. So A&T cannot start 0-4, or it's going to get real interesting in the Big South. FAMU got beat 60+0 by UCF. Oh, North Dakota. I don't know if North Dakota has a great chance. In case you guys are wondering, Tarleton is inside Mississippi Valley State territory in 3 plays. They are driving it down Valley's throat right now. A&M's defense still looks like Swiss cheese. UNC was playing soft covers the whole game. A&M's defense isn't worth 2 wooden nickels. Jesus Christ. North Dakota State will beat Arizona. I agree with that. They should beat Arizona. Now, this is a weird case of if North Dakota State loses to Arizona, that is almost a bad look. That's the one time an FCS team cannot lose to a Power 5 team. You just cannot do it, man. Cannot do it. 1-3 best case scenario for A&T. maybe not the best case, man. 2-2 is probably the best case. They could beat Central, they could beat South Carolina State. I don't give A&T much of a chance to upset North Dakota State and or Duke. They have a better chance of upsetting Duke than North Dakota State, in my opinion. I see. Since we the level of competition needs to be raised, the level of efficient needs to be raised as well. I agree, Vic. I agree. Now listen, man. I'm about to go catch some of these games. Tarleton Valley is on ESPN Plus, CBS Sports Network, UAB, Alabama A&M. Man, go support those games. Also, Campbell's playing on ESPN Plus. Sanford, Kennesaw State. There's a bunch, and I think Tarleton State might have just scored. Do they call it a touchdown? Yeah, they're celebrating touchdown Tarleton State, corner of the end zone. Bo Kelly makes a great throw. 7-0 Tarleton State. Not great, but listen, man. Hit the like button, subscribe. Hey, this was just our first week 1 preview, FCS preview. Listen, Sunday night after the Jackson State FAMU game, we're doing our week 1 recap, just like we did last week after the MEAC SWAC challenge on week 0. Make sure to tune into that. Set your post notifications. It'll probably be about 7-8 o'clock that night. I know there's going to be a lot of live streams probably going on, man, but make sure you tune in right here. Like button, subscribe, check out our previews. We're going to have more dropping tomorrow. Stephen F. Alston, Alcorn State. Our website will have our full list of FCS previews coming out on the website, man. Join the membership. The first level gives you priorities and a few benefits. It's like $2, man. Y'all help a man out with all the travel. And level 2, we're going to be doing a Celebration Bowl ticket giveaway if you're in the level 2 category. But listen, man, appreciate all y'all tuning in. But until next time, man, the Blue Bloods are out.